My brother and I, Jeremy, our guitar player, we grew up on the radio. Our dad was a radio DJ like the first half of our lives. So definitely get the whole radio thing. And we used to go, when our parents split up, we would like, when our dad had us, we'd go to work, a lot of times go to work with him, which was Kiss FM, Los Angeles. And we were always just like hanging out on the radio station, watching him, go through, we'd answer request lines. And that's when that was a thing.
They really said, hey, the children are here, put them to work instead of paying a producer.
Well, what was awesome about having your dad on the radio was when he was like live, he couldn't really father, he couldn't really like chase it. He was like stuck to the microphone and putting records on, and we were just like running amok in the building and getting jacked up on coffee in the lounge, and we had a blast.
Incredible. Yeah.
Oh my God. I will still say recently too, I can still do that as a 28-year-old and just be jacked up on coffee and also run around and yell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot's changed for us. Still running amok. Drinking way too much. I mean, that's where I got hooked on coffee, was those days.
The childhood, yeah.
I'm like 6 years old, 7 years old, and I'm just like pouring sugar, until it tasted like candy. And to this
You're
day.
like, don't worry. I know how I take my coffee.
Yeah.
I'm an adult.
I still drink it a little bit sweet. But what do you guys want to know?
Yeah. Well, why don't we have you introduce yourself and what you do in the band? I mean, we know, but just for the listener, obviously, like,
cool.
Just tell us a little bit about you and the band and yeah.
Well, I'm Ajay Popoff. I sing for the band Lit. We're part of the When We Were Young festival because that was like an era of music that it's so crazy to think when you look around all the peers that came out at the same time Lit did. We were different in some ways. Like we kind of caught this MTV wave when we first came out, so we were very much a TRL MTV band, and did a lot of stuff on television. So we kind of like branded ourselves in a weird way during that time, which was the only way we knew. We grew up on that stuff. So making, crazy music videos and just having the time of our lives doing that, so that was, I think, 25 years ago.
I was going to say, it's been...
When we finally, finally got, like, I guess, the big break and sort of started getting airtime on the radio and getting TV time. But we were a band for about 10 years before that. So we, it was like a 10-year overnight success. It was like, finally, we got this shot. And then when it hit the radio, then it was like, all right, you guys, go do it.
Now it's forever.
And then it was like this machine that was just overwhelming but rad. And it's been, same guys in the band. We lost our drummer, Big Al, passed away. And it's been a while now. It's crazy. I'm like, I don't even have a sense of the timeline, but it seems like yesterday and it feels like a lifetime ago. But the three of us other guys, the original guys, just kept it going. And we took a lot of time off. We almost weren't going to keep the band going because it didn't feel right. We were in high school when we started the band. And then once we started putting the pieces back together and writing music again, it was like the floodgates opened back up, and we were just, it was almost like we sort of had the nod from Big Al above, and kind of just going, you guys don't let me down. We worked too hard for this. Keep it going. So we, here we are, and it's just so crazy, man, to think, like I was saying, when we were young, and you look at these bands, like, wait, we're not still young. What the hell? Where did all those years go? Which is what everyone, I guess anybody has years pass quickly as they do. It's impossible not to look back on all these years and go, wow, that was fast, But yeah, it's still a fun band to be in, and we're still really stoked to get on stage. So I think we're lucky.
Yeah. I remember, My Own Worst Enemy played on our radio station Q101, which is like the alternative.
Oh, yeah.
It's like sandwiched in between Foo Fighters and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Green Day and Blink and all these bands. Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, in the 90s, early 2000s, I'm like, this is like a rock band, but I wouldn't necessarily throw them in like the pop punk genre, even though, sort of at the same time as like Bowling for Soup and bands like that. And then now I'm like, it actually does make a lot of sense to have Lit on this like giant pop punk rock emo festival. And I'm like, it just makes a lot of sense now, I think. But did you ever like think of it as like, we're doing a pop punk band, we're doing Green Day, we're doing Blink, any of that?
Never, when we set out to start a rock band, it literally was. Sorry, I'm getting tangled in my in-ear monitor cord. This thing's too short. It was literally just not something we thought about. We had a lot of influences, a lot of favorite bands, but they were all across the board, literally from everything from Elvis Costello to, Iron Maiden, and, there was a lot of metal in there. There was like Cheap Trick. There were some hair bands in there from way back when we first started, and, Guns N' Roses and bands like that. And we just followed our instincts. Like I was telling you about being, our dad being on pop radio. We spent so much time around pop music that it really wasn't, I don't really think it was a genre at the time. It was looked at more as these are the most popular songs in the nation right now, the top 40 songs. And it ran the gamut from, rock and roll to, pop, you name it. It wasn't really like a niche genre. So that being sort of embedded in us when we write songs, we're like, oh, let's, that heavy riff sounds killer. Let's just run with that. And then we always had this thing that I think no matter how heavy the riff gets or how punk rock it sounds or whatever, the melodies are kind of pop. I guess that's where pop punk sort of came from. Mm-hmm. It's just it's punk rock drum beats and distorted guitar, but then the melodies are very pop melodic. People can sing along with them. Whereas punk rock kind of started out a little more like kind of sloppy and just an attitude, which is rad. And I love that kind of punk rock too. And it's just, I love the evolution of music, and we've always let ourselves do that as a band without pigeonholing ourselves. So we've played with everybody from, Korn and Limp Bizkit and, heavy bands to, Blink-182 and some of the pop punk stuff. So we hate to, categorize anybody. We just love a festival like this that can have so many different styles of music in one place. Because everyone, I don't know about you, but when I go through my playlist, it's everything from reggae music to, Sepultura, and it's just everywhere. So if I didn't get to do that, if I went to a festival, I don't want to just hear, the whole day. I do want to hear it break up a little bit. And so I think people are going to have a great time at festivals like that.
Yeah, even with
obviously.
I was going to say, you guys have also came out with a new album recently. And when I was looking at the collaborators you had also the bassist or drummer, I believe, from No Doubt. And then you also have American Authors on there, which I feel like is such a little bit of a switch up because they're much more poppy. And then we have No Doubt Legacy and then Lit.
It was actually Adrian, the drummer, who played on it. But yeah, totally. And those guys, we wrote one of our songs, The Life That I Got, with those guys, American Authors, and did it just how we're doing this right now. It's one of the few Zoom writes that I actually enjoyed. And it was our first time meeting. We hadn't met in person yet. And we just goofed around I was in this room and they were in their living rooms, wherever, in their studios, whatever. And we wrote a really fun song, kind of a little bit throwback, nostalgic, about our come up, and made the record, and we did a little collab, and those guys do what they do on it, and it's cool because it's sort of not buried, but the style that they're so known for is mixed in with the Lit sound. It sort of just became its own hybrid Lit song, you know what I mean? I'd love to have heard what they would have done with it on their own too.
Do you think there's more compared to how it's been in the scene, compared to how rock music has been, where it's not a lot of collaboration and it sort of feels like every rock band is no, we're the coolest and we're the best? Do you think now it's become much more we're collaborating and everybody there's probably a bunch of people who grew up listening to Lit who are now musicians and they're like, holy shit, I would love to work with you and write a song and get on a Zoom call with you.
And that's, I think, technology has been a big part of that, and all the home studios. I think obviously the COVID shutdown, when everyone kind of had to do things remotely and out of home studios, and everyone started writing songs more like this. And at the time, everyone was like, when you first log on, you're like, all right, how are we going to do this? This is weird. And the first few times it was really weird. And I still think it's weird. I would rather be in a room with somebody and feed off that energy, but we figured out how to do it this way. And I think the whole collaborating with other artists, for us, I think I know everyone's doing it right now, and it's killer. I think it's great. Hip hop artists have been doing it for, forever. But for us, we really needed some other writers and some other peers to sort of help us steer it back to some of our roots. Because my brother and I write the majority of our songs, and we had started writing like a lot of country. We live in Nashville, and we were writing some like kind of more rock, but country-esque, and just like having fun with that. And it just kept evolving, and we sort of like took that detour and just kept going with it, just loving it. And I still love it, but we were like, man, that's not really lit. And we didn't feel right doing that with our bass player, not, without his full stamp of approval. And it wasn't like his cup of tea. So we're like, why don't we still love where we came from. We still love everything rock. Let's get with some of these guys that sort of were part of that era as well. And we just, and a lot of like American Authors was much more new school, but it really helped us hone in on what we were trying to do. And we sort of got this nostalgic lit record, but like a very modern take on it. And these guys like, what would a lit song sound like if you wrote it today? And we would sort of like start there, and we'd kind of bounce off each other, and then we take it to the lit land, and
the lit land.
We got, Tastes Like Gold. And that was like we're very, very happy with the outcome of it, because we're like, this is exactly what we're trying to do. And it's very rare that you can kind of have like this goal, this mission, and it's what you think it's going to look like. And usually it's like, oh, wow, that's totally different. But this is exactly what we set out to do. So pretty cool.
Now, here's the thing. When we were at Litland on Saturday from when we were young, are you going to announce it as such? And what has the general like audience reception from the album been so far?
We've been playing like crazy. So we did like a proper tour back in the spring, beginning of summer. We've been just flying out and just doing all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's always weird for a band. You never know how the fans are going to, take the new stuff. And a lot of times it's a lull in the set. People are kind of like, okay, this is cool, but let's get back to the songs we know. This was a very, one of the rare occurrences where we were literally like, most of the new songs, or actually all of the new songs, were getting more reaction than a lot of the older stuff. Just, I think maybe a combination of more layers, just a different, fresher sound that kind of, when you mix it in with the old favorites, it just kind of like, I don't know, for me, it's almost like, I'm going to go do a shot of espresso real quick. And it just kind of keeps you going, and just throughout the record. And like, I love, people that loved old lit can listen to a new record and not feel like they're, kind of like it's stale or dated. It just feels more like a fresh new version of us. But they still, I think most people that come and see us still want to hear, obviously they want to hear My Worst Enemy, but like Miserable, and, some of the deeper cuts, 4, and so we still play everything from the old records that people love, and but then we mix in a good handful of new stuff.
That's good.
It's sort of I've never called it Litland, but yeah, it's funny.
It's time.
We do have our own little
time.
world.
If we hear you say "Welcome to Litland," we're going to be cheering from wherever we are in the crowd.
There you go. It might stick.
Yeah. Who knows? At this point, everybody needs like a little bit, a little like thing to add to their set in that way that, like, I don't know, makes it more like this is our lit land. This is our time. This is our space with you, and
right.
We're calling it Lit.
It's kind of like the Kiss Army or one of those things. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna have to note that down.
I mean, yeah, you got to have a lit army, a lit. I don't know what I call it.
No, I don't think that.
I don't know what.
What would it be? I know. It's like, you gotta be careful now. What can we call it?
I don't know. I was gonna say lit mafia, and I'm like, that doesn't.
No.
That doesn't feel right either.
It's kind of cool.
I remember,
Awesome.
And I would only say it that way because I remember like watching, like, I think it was VH1, it might have been MTV, but I remember like you were being interviewed about like how much Vegas nostalgia you have in your music and in your style, like at that time, like back during that, and like now it's like, oh cool, well you're playing a Vegas festival, so it is kind of Litland, like you're doing Litland on a stage in Vegas in that way.
We always and Vegas was, I guess the biggest influence it had on us was more like we all loved like swing music and jazz and all that big band era. So the Rat Pack in Vegas, and actually our the record with My Worst Enemy is called A Place in the Sun, which came from the Sands Casino sign. Sands, A Place in the Sun. But like the style of the Rat Pack, the Suits, remember the movie Swingers, like those guys were into that sort of thing too. I remember that movie came out, we're like, whoa, the movie's about us. Like, it just felt like we might not have been as cool, but like that's what we were after, was like, how can we be a part of that? Like we wish we would have been, around in those times. And so like, let's take as much of that as we can and bring it into our world, as our lit land, and just sort of just indulge more in, because we drove old Cadillacs, I had a 63, my brother had a 61, and we lived in that world in that time period. And still to this day, I can't hear, but I put on jazz every day in my house, and like partly to calm the dogs down, but I just love that whole era. Our grandparents were, big. Our grandfather was a jazz musician, and so yeah, just having that around, it's kind of comforting. And at the same time, it was over the top, and it was, our first record, "Trippin' the Light Fantastic," is what they used to say back in the day, when that was like, let's go out, let's go party, let's go out dancing and drinking and whatever. And that's what we named that record. So we just, we liked to party, and we like to look nice doing it.
That's so fair and valid, honestly.
Yeah,
like, you
true.
have to have the riz when you're up on stage to an extent, and like when you're out like that as well. And I think like really committing to it like brings
it makes you feel better,
experience
right?
to a different level.
Yeah, it's true what they say. Like when you get dressed up, you definitely feel better about yourself. Your energy levels are up, and you're ready for a good time. If you just kind of try and roll out, yeah, I'm not going to shower. I'll meet you guys there. You'll show up, just kind of, it's just, you don't have the same energy. So there's definitely something to be said about, come on, do it right.
It's true.
Get dressed up.
I have many rules when I'm in a band with people, and it's like only one guy can wear flannel, because otherwise there's too much flannel.
Right.
No hats.
Pearl
I'm
Jam.
like, leave no baseball caps. I'm like, people want to see your face, and they want to see what you look like. And it's like, yeah, dress up like you're doing a show. Anybody could roll up on the weekend and just like, all right, I put on my finest flannel to play the show, and then I'm going to go home afterwards. And it's like, this is a performance. Yeah. This is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a little bit like,
you're an entertainer.
Being entertaining, yeah. And I mean, personally, I think the lit fashion from that era is like 100% still in fashion, and still like
it dipped out for a bit.
It took a minute off, and now it's back, and everyone's like, no, that actually is like good fashion. I don't think you were ever like Guy Fieri, right? But you know how like Guy Fieri has like the button ups and all that, and it's like the fire.
True Religion.
Yeah, but like, if you can do something like that nowadays, like, you're still in fashion. Yeah. And it still looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's
I laugh when I look back at old like videos, like the Woodstock video and stuff, and I look at, because we still wear, I'll wear some polyester and some slacks, but that was a time when I'd wear the slacks with like some pleats, and they were worn kind of high. Mm-hmm. And I look back, I'm like, wow, my pants were really baggy. I'm like, they weren't like a tailored thing. It was like just some of the colors too, just real bright colors. I'm like, well, I don't know that I can go back to that. I don't know that I can put those, like, I've run across some of those old clothes. And I'm like, I put them on, I'm like, oh, hell no. So I'm like,
you're like, what is this?
I'm kind of like the grown up version of that, I guess now, or it's just like, I still want to kind of push it sometimes, but I mean, that was 99, that was 2000, whatever. You gotta let it move and evolve too. But at the same time, we were copping a style that was 1950s, 1960s. Sure. So, like you said, some stuff just is meant to come back around.
I mean, you're playing a giant music festival in Vegas,
that's
and
big
your music's coming back
core.
around. So it's all coming back around eventually.
It does, huh? I'm so excited, man. They're just, and I think Jarrett from Bowling Pursuit is a buddy of ours, but I heard his interview. He was talking about what was he saying? Lost my train of thought. We all have ADD in music.
It's true.
It's a crazy
Honestly,
thing.
the best musicians do.
Yeah, what was he saying? Jeez. Anyway, maybe he'll come back.
Yeah.
My mom always said if it was important, if it wasn't important, you're going to forget about it. But then you meant to talk about it, it'll come back to you.
Yeah. Were you talking about our interview with him, or?
I think it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Damn. We assume nobody listens to our podcast, so we're just like really
okay, it did come back. So I think he said something about there were so many bands. It was like everybody was there. That everyone thought at first it might have been a joke.
Yeah.
And that like there's just really like this many bands can't fit. There's just no way. There's no time for changeover. There's no like, how are these? There's just didn't think it was real. And then when it happened, I was like, damn, like, how do you pull off something like that? So, you know, a nod to everyone that's putting on this thing, because they're pulling it off, and that's a lot to take on.
Yeah, we went last year, and up until like we left, I had a bunch of other friends and just people on the internet that are like, "This is a fake fest." I'm like, "It's ran by Live Nation. I'm pretty sure it's not fake."
Yeah, everyone wanted to think it. Yeah, there's people just like to jump the gun in the bandwagon and just be like, "Yeah, it's fake," and then they believe what they read and they just spread it.
I like to call them the armchair music experts.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to explain to me the music industry. I'm like, that's so crazy. That's literally not how it works, bestie. But cool.
Yeah.
Right. We're still trying to figure out how it works. If they know, please.
You'll find out.
Yeah.
We should be asking you. Like, I don't know if we can help you.
How it works? Yeah. It changes constantly, doesn't it?
I mean,
it's always changing.
I think it's a beautiful thing, and I don't know. I mean, it's great that it's more. It's great that all the bands that I grew up with are still around, and it's great that, you know, they're on the same shows with like newer bands that have popped off and are, you know, doing big things too. So I'm like, it's just very nice that it's like, it feels like a very inclusive community, right? Like everybody wants to like work with each other and hang out and be friends and like put on a good show. It's like, I don't know, that sort of vibe to it is. I don't know. That seems like it's still there, and that seems like what the music industry should be about, right?
I think that's one of the few things that I personally, coming from a different way that you say how it works and how all our bands kind of came up when we did. One of the gains I think now is that like it's not so much every man for themselves and like this competitive, like kind of gross competitiveness. That's like, oh, I want my band to be bigger than your band, and it was like, you know, a competition, especially like on the West Coast. But I think in general, and now it is more like you want to see your peers succeed, you know, regardless of the genre. I see people do well and I get excited for them. Like, that's awesome. It's the music scene or business, whatever you want to call it. That's anytime anybody thrives, it's good for everybody, you know? Mm-hmm. So I like to see that, you know, people are coming up with new ways to still be successful and to still get their music out. And a lot of these young new artists that are, you know, I always love bands that make music, you know, with live guitars and all that, but guys that are pulling off these great records just in their, you know, programming stuff and like, but they sound amazing. Like, hell yeah, that's killer. I love it.
There's room for all of it.
Yeah.
There's room.
In other ways that you've been kind of continuing the music and things of that nature and kind of promoting your music as well, I saw that you guys also put out a podcast about the single My Own Worst Enemy, which I think is so cool and different to do like a big deep dive on it. So kind of how did that come to fruition?
That wasn't our idea. And that was typically we kind of control in not that we're closed off to other people's ideas, but like as a band, we've always sort of came up with our own video ideas and treatments and, you know, co-produced all our records. But this thing was like, it was just someone thought that with all that song is so weird. And so that when I say weird, not necessarily how it sounds, but how it, you know, it's at all these hockey games and sporting events to this day. And like karaoke, like actually like it charts on the karaoke charts. And like, it's just such a weird phenomenon like that. Like here we are 25 years later and that song gets played on the radio and in these bars. And so as much as it did in 99, crazy. Like just, I mean, it's because there's also the new things that it's doing now because nostalgically and then, you know, bands cover it, but it's just some, a podcast producer thought it'd be cool to go deep into the making of that song and what keeps a song around that long, what gives it legs like that. And is it lyrical? Is it just that the time it came out, how the world was and people want to keep going back to that time and that place or it's just, you know, catching lightning in a bottle and just getting really lucky with a song that got to break through and happened to have this like hook that worked. And, but yeah, I mean, the podcast interviews everybody from program directors to other musicians, like, you know, guys from Offspring and Sugar Ray and people that were around when we were kind of just being blown away by, wait, we're playing with you guys and like, we love you guys. And then just watching us experience some of the things they got to go through in the beginning, and they got a kick out of, watching a young band have success. And so that kind of dives into all that and just how that song came about. And it's pretty neat. I think it's just My Own Worst Enemy, the podcast. And there's I think it's 4 parts.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I was like, oh, that's so different and interesting.
Yeah, he did
I know there's a bunch of other Dissect and other music podcasts, but those are only here's one episode about this whole album or a couple songs. So to see it for one specific song, I think that's really different.
It goes a little deeper too. It kind of goes into our functionality as a band too, then in the process of getting, to the point where we wrote that song, and then when it got sort of catapulted into the universe of music, I guess. But yeah, I mean, we're lucky. We feel very blessed. I feel like, I mean, I've been saying this now for the past 10 years. If I got struck by lightning and died tomorrow, I think I reached where I wanted to go. And these are all just bonus years now. So I'm very, very stoked. Very stoked to get on stage. Like I said, I feel like when we get on stage, is it 99 still? It's just the energy is just, maybe that's what keeps people from forgetting how old they are.
True. I will also say, along with karaoke and all that, I'm in the cover band scene here in Chicago, and just played a wedding. Just did a cover band set. Is mostly a pop punk emo band, and then at the very end of the wedding, one of the best men was like, "Play My Own Worst Enemy by Lit." And I'm like, I mean, we kind of have to end the set. The venue's closing. Everyone's trying to get out of here. He's like, "Play My Own Worst Enemy by Lit." And we're like, we all know it, right? And the band's like, yeah. So we just played it. Just
That's awesome.
And everyone was going off. I'm like, this song really is just timeless. And I think from my position as both a person who has been covering it for years now, and I'm sorry for all the royalties I've stolen from you, but and also somebody who just really appreciates music. I'm like, this doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it could have come out yesterday, and it sounds like it could have come out in the '90s, and it has this very timeless sound, very timeless feel. The lyrics still are there, the melody, the vocal parts, all of it. It's just perfect, and it's I absolutely understand it.
It's such a simple song. We always we trip out when people, ask us about writing it. And we're like, we had no idea. One of the easiest songs we've written, because it's just, we don't really follow many rules. There's really no proper pre-chorus or bridge or anything like that. And the lyrics, a lot of things don't rhyme. We just kind of went with this feeling we had, and wrote it in probably less than an hour, I think, which is record time for us.
And that's usually the songs that go the biggest, that get the most attention, that everybody knows, are the ones that were written in the shortest amount of time.
Right? You got to and that's taught us a lot about, because we all are, artists are just overthinkers, and painters do the same thing. It's oh, just keep going, and a lot of times they ruin their painting, or they ruin their song a lot of times. And trying to teach ourselves to just don't overthink it. You don't have to outdo this song that you wrote that had these really clever, crazy lyrics. You don't always have to do that. It came out that way because that was natural. I don't think we ever, we never try and write a song like one of our other songs, because you just can't do it. It just comes off not authentic the next time around.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're at 30 minutes, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I do want to give you a chance to toss out, obviously When We Were Young happening this weekend. You've got also other dates of tour, so if you want to promote, other places you'll be, and other places people can see if they're not coming to Vegas.
I mean, it sucks. I should have put my dates in front of me. I do know we are we're just this week we're on the West Coast, so on the 18th of October, we're going to be in San Diego, House of Blues. The 19th, Anaheim, House of Blues. And When We Were Young is directly after that, and that's going to be out of control. I'm glad they added a second day, so we can just kind of do a little quick repeat.
Yeah.
And then, people can find all of our dates at litband.com. And there's a lot of fun stuff coming up. Actually, we have a pretty badass announcement I can't talk about yet. I hate when people say that, but I'm as much as I want to say it right now, I can't. But we're starting a new record here, like in December, with a legend, and it's gonna be so much fun.
Hell yeah!
Ooh, love to hear it.
See, that's like it's a little tease, you know.
Yeah, I'm just. Yeah,
That's how you get people to come to Litland.
Litland.
You bring them in, you're like, hey.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For the listener at home, make sure you're checking out Lit at When We Were Young or any tour dates that are coming to a town near you. Stream the new album, Tastes Like Gold. Stream My Own Worst Enemy because it still goes hard and you can still enjoy it. And AJ, this is honestly really fantastic. It was really great. I'm glad we got to make this happen, and thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you, dude.
Likewise. No, pleasure talking with you.